Hey guys, TheMMOFifty here. I wanted to come on and do this little vlog. It's the first one that I've done in a while. You probably noticed that I've erased all my other vlogs. If you've watched any of them before, a lot of people hadn't. Only had a few views per each vlog, so I'm not surprised. What I wanted to talk here about is I just finished watching the new ThunderCats on Cartoon Network. And yes, I still watch cartoons, sue me. I like to hold on to the things that make me happy. Believe it or not, I love big cats. I love tigers, I love lions, bears, oh my. Sorry, I had to. I kid, but I do indeed love a lot of felines and big animals, though I do like dogs too. I'm a little of both a cat and dog person. Anyway, I only recently got into the ThunderCats. I wasn't in it when I was a little kid because I was way too young to have been around when the ThunderCats were big. The ThunderCats came out in 1985, excuse me, and I was born early 90s. So, yeah, I wasn't around early enough to see them in their prime. Any knowledge I had of them was secondhand at best. And then recently I went online and I looked up a couple of the episodes, and it looked pretty good. For 1985 quality hand-drawn animation, it was actually fairly good. Solid quality all throughout. It was smooth and consistent for the most part. Minor flubs here and there, but that's to be expected with hand-drawn animation. Even with computer animation, there are moderate flubs. But watching this new series, going into the series, the new one that is, knowing as much as I do about the old series, I know a lot about the old series. I don't know absolutely nothing about it, I know a lot, but I don't know everything there is to know, so I haven't seen more than maybe the first 50 episodes or so. But immediately when this episode starts off, okay, this is going to be a big spoiler thing. I'm not going to try and let off a lot of spoilers here, but I'm going to try and give like a rough idea of what I think, how I think this is working, and if this works or not. Basically, this show, it opens up and it does what a good show should do. It sets up the characters, it establishes them, but it builds up on a slow basis. It sort of sets up, these characters are like this, and they are connected to each other like this. And some of you may be surprised to find out that in this episode, we don't see all of the ThunderCats from the original series, being Lion-O, Chitara, Tigra, Panthro, Wily Cat and Kit. We don't see them all together. And I didn't see any one that looked like the other ThunderCats that came later in the series, the other three. And we did see Snarf, though the Snarf that we see doesn't talk. Mostly acts kind of like, well, a kitten, basically. Doesn't say anything, just mews like a kitten, or meows, whichever you choose. But, yeah, this series, looking at it, the art quality and the style of the animation is actually very fluid and very smooth. And it's very anime semblance. It has a lot of anime resemblance, and that actually is kind of a good thing because that's what a lot of people expect in their shows nowadays. And this show takes its cues from the original ThunderCats in how some of the characters' baseline appearances look. Like Lion-O still has the red mane, and Tigra still has the tiger stripes in his face. They all look basically similar to what they did in the original. Similar enough that if you looked at the image and you knew the original ThunderCats, you could look at these and say, oh, that's Lion-O, that's Tigra, that's Panthro, that's Chitara, Wily Cat and Kit. Interestingly, they gave Wily Cat and Kit tails, which, correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't have tails in the original show, and I'm pretty certain about that. It would be kind of obvious. That kind of made me raise my eyebrows for a second, but I actually kind of like that aesthetic choice. And interestingly, I remember watching the first episodes of ThunderCats, going into it, and on the very first episode of the original series, we see the entire planet of Thundera, the ThunderCats' homeworld, being completely destroyed. Basically, the equivalent of what would have happened if Transformers started off, and instead of fighting for a war over the Energon to power Cybertron, what if they were fighting a war on a planet since theirs had already been destroyed, basically? That's kind of what happened. The entire planet that they lived on was destroyed in the first episode, so we didn't have really any establishing factors to go into it. We had no preconceptions of what Thundera was like, except it was inhabited by, humanoid cats, or anthros, or furries, whatever you want to call them. And in this new series, it is not set on the planet Thundera. It is actually set on the planet called Third Earth, which was the planet that the ThunderCats in the original series landed on. They crash-landed there. They were aiming for Third Earth because that was the planet that had the closest compatibility to their home planet of Thundera. And they landed on Third Earth, and they made it their home, basically. I read somewhere that they eventually went to another planet called New Thundera. I'm not sure, but they don't have it on Netflix, and I haven't been able to find the DVDs for it, so I'm taking what I can get for information. Anyway, this new series starts out on Third Earth, and instead of having a planet called Thundera, they basically are in a kingdom called Thundera. And the original enemies from the original show, at least the lizards, originally there were 4 basic enemies: Mumra, the Monkeyan, the Shacklin, I think it was, and then Slithe, who was kind of like a reptile kind of guy. And there were a whole bunch of reptile guys in this one. Basically, Slithe eventually was found out to be the commander, in a sense. I'm not going to give away a lot of what's happening here in this episode. I'm just going to restate that because it wouldn't be fun. But anyway, what basically happens is that this show, it takes its cues from the original ThunderCats in the way that it should, setting up how these characters are aligned to each other, and it sort of sets up that it's not blatant by any means, but I can sense a little bit of an undercurrent that there might be something of a love triangle forming between Lion-O, Tigera, and Cheetara. And in this show, all of the main characters aren't adults like they were in the original, and Lion-O is not a child in the body of an adult. You can look up the original for that. He is basically either a young adult or a very late teenager. Basically, I'd guess somewhere within 16 to 19 years of age, roughly equivalent. And Tigra is his adoptive brother. And their father, King Claudia, or is it Claudius? Claudia? I'm gonna have to check that out. But anyway, the king is played. Their father is played by the original Lion-O from ThunderCats. So that's a little nice nod there. I'm not going to say what happens in the episode exactly. I keep restating this. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that that I'm trying to be spoiler-free here with a lot of it. But a lot of the establishment about the characters is done very well in this, and it does deviate somewhat from the original series in how some of the characters interact, but it reorganizes the characters in such a way that it becomes... How shall I put this? It becomes more typical of what you would expect in a modern show like this. But they did not hold back on any violence in this show. They didn't show any blood. They showed at least 2 confirmed deaths on screen. At least 2. And I'm not going to say who, but it's pretty big, and for a kids show, this is pretty big stuff. So they don't show any blood, like I said, but it's still very high energy, high impact, and it all comes at you pretty quick. The show does a good job of setting up pace and tone in such a way that it doesn't feel like it's coming at you all at once. It's coming at you in small waves. And it's like you're realizing, if you've seen the original series, you're like, oh, okay, that's what this is like. And I love the way they set this up, because it's like the Thundera, like, they say they're on Third Earth now, and they say something to the effect of, our ancestors, the original ThunderCats, founded this kingdom on Third Earth of Thundera for us, and we carry on their tradition, something like that. And and that sort of leads me to believe that possibly this is sort of setting up the idea that it's possible that this new ThunderCats is actually not a spin-off so much, but is directly tied into the original ThunderCats in a sense. Possibly that the modern Lion-O is somehow descendant from the original Lion-O, which gives credence to the fact that the original voice actor for Lion-O is playing his father, so it gives you a thought there. But it was probably a much more large of a generational gap. I'm betting several hundred years at least, but that's debatable. Anyway, the show, it looks very good, and I can't wait to see more of it because it looks like it'll turn out to be it looks like it will be a good honoring of the old series while establishing itself in its own ways, basically. Taking what the original set forth and running with that, but also adding in its own flavor. Sort of like, what's the best analogy I can think of? Sort of like taking the best qualities from your mentor and taking those qualities, learning from them, and adding them into your own best qualities and running with those. Basically, that's kind of what it's like. And this series, if it is just a reboot, if it's not connected directly with the original ThunderCats in anything but name and likeness of characters, it still does a fairly good job of doing that. So, anyway, I've rambled about this for long enough. If I had to say, first episode of ThunderCats, definitely worth a watch if it comes on for you. Definitely DVR it if you don't have the time. Fans of the original series may not like the new design aesthetic of the characters looking more like traditional anime designs, but it does make them look much more feline and much less human than the original characters, but they still have their humanoid qualities. Anyway, if I had to rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 10 for a reboot, I'd definitely give this reboot a 9, because it does what it's supposed to do. It establishes the characters, and it sets up the premise rather well and believably, to the point where it doesn't really break your suspension of disbelief. And the action is solid, the animation is solid, everything about this is pretty much solid except for one or two very small nitpicks I could make here and there, and the fact that we don't get to see all of the original ThunderCats together in this first episode, so that sort of takes a little bit off, but not enough for it to be considered a very big blow. It does its job of establishing everything. So thank you for watching this vlog, everybody. Hope to see you next time when I do my Kamen Rider review, unless something else comes up and I'll do a vlog of something then. Anyway, see y'all soon. TheMMO50 signing off.